Dr. Nathan Carter adjusted his Italian silk tie as he reviewed the morning's patient list. At 35, he commanded respect in Manhattan's most prestigious medical tower. His family name opening doors that money alone couldn't budge. The polished marble floors reflected golden sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows, and the faint scent of eucalyptus filled his private cardiology office. Everything about Nathan's world was controlled, predictable, sterile. Until Sarah Mitchell walked in. She entered like a shadow, trying not to disturb the light. 26 years old, according to her sparse file, referred from a small-town doctor in Springfield. Her oversized cardigan hung loose on her small frame, and she clutched an old canvas bag against her chest like armor. "Good morning, Sarah." Nathan gestured to the leather chair across from his mahogany desk. She flinched at the sound of her name, her large eyes darting everywhere except his face. When she finally sat, her fingers knotted nervously in her sleeves. "I see you've been experiencing irregular heartbeats," he said, opening her file. "Yes," she whispered, so quietly he had to lean forward. "It feels like my heart races, especially around people." Nathan studied her pale face, noting the tremor in her voice that had nothing to do with arrhythmia. "Any chest pain?" Her head, still avoiding his gaze. "Previous medical conditions? Surgeries?" Another shake. "All right. I'll need to listen to your heart to rule out anything physical." He reached for his stethoscope. Sarah froze completely. Her breath caught, and her hands turned visibly cold and clammy. Nathan paused, lowering the instrument. I won't proceed. Unless you're comfortable." Her lips parted, then closed. A blush climbed her neck as shame colored her cheeks. Then, with a voice like a fragile thread, she whispered, "I've never been touched. Not like this. Not by anyone, really." Nathan's eyebrows drew together. In 15 years of practice, he'd treated CEOs, celebrities, even heads of state. But never someone whose vulnerability felt this raw, this real, not even during childhood. "Checkups," he asked gently. I avoided them. She looked up for just a flicker, and he saw a lifetime of fear trapped behind quiet eyes. "I've never had an exam like this before." Something shifted inside Nathan's chest, subtle but irreversible. This wasn't just about medicine anymore. "Okay," Nathan said softly, setting his stethoscope aside. "Let's slow down. You're safe here." Sarah's shoulders relaxed slightly, though her grip on her bag remained tight. "I'll guide you through every step," he continued. "Can stop me at any moment, deal?" She hesitated, then gave the faintest nod. When Nathan finally placed the stethoscope near her collarbone, Sarah flinched but didn't pull away. Her heart was racing so fast, he could barely get a steady rhythm. His hands remained steady, but his thoughts weren't. This woman's vulnerability wasn't performative, it was achingly genuine. After the brief examination, Sarah released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. So did Nathan. "Your heart sounds strong," he said, removing his gloves. "But I'd like you to come back tomorrow for some additional tests." Sarah nodded and gathered her things quickly, eager to escape. But as she reached the door, she paused. "Thank you," she said without turning around, "for being kind." After she left, Nathan remained seated, staring at the closed door. Something lingered in the air between them, not attraction, not yet, but something rarer. A question, the door half open. The next morning, Sarah returned as scheduled. Nathan had arranged for his nurse to stay nearby, but Sarah came alone, on time. Still quiet as ever, with her cardigan sleeves pulled over her hands like a child's safety blanket. "Good to see you again, Sarah," he greeted gently. She nodded, didn't speak. When he extended his hand for a polite handshake, her fingers barely brushed his before retreating, as if even that small contact had taken all her courage. "We'll do some blood work today and set you up with a heart monitor," Nathan explained. "But first, I'd like to listen to your heart again. You did really well last time." As he approached with the stethoscope, her breathing quickened. Not the shallow nervousness of typical patients, this was deeper, more primal. Her arms crossed protectively over her chest. "It's okay," Nathan said, lowering his hands. "We don't have to rush." Sarah swallowed hard. For the first time, she tried to speak beyond single-word answers. "I don't know why this is so hard." Nathan crouched slightly, bringing himself to her eye level while maintaining distance. Because somewhere, along the way, someone taught you that being touched meant being in danger. Her eyes widened in surprise. I've worked with trauma patients before, Nathan continued gently. You're not broken, but your body remembers things even when your mind tries to stay quiet about them. Never been hurt, Sarah said quickly, as if needing to clear herself of suspicion. Not like that. I believe you, Nathan answered immediately. But trauma doesn't always look like what we see in movies. It can be years of silence, neglect, isolation, or simply never being shown that the world can be safe. Sarah's lips trembled. Part of her wanted to run, but another part, quieter, braver, wanted to stay, to understand why her heart reacted this way, why being near a kind man made her pulse explode with panic. Nathan reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a small mirror. Here, he said, handing it to her. Watch your own face while I place the stethoscope. That way you'll see that you're okay, that no one's hurting you. Tentatively, she took the mirror. Her hands shook as she held it up, watching her own reflection as Nathan slowly, carefully placed the stethoscope against her chest. In the mirror, she saw her own Fasipali, but determined, frightened, but not fleeing. Breathe, Nathan murmured. You're doing great. For the first time in her life, Sarah felt the strange sensation of being cared for by someone who wanted nothing. In return, the examination lasted only minutes, but something fundamental had shifted. Over the following weeks, Sarah returned for follow-up appointments that stretched longer than medically necessary. Nathan found himself asking about her life beyond her symptoms. She lived alone in a tiny apartment, worked as a librarian in a quiet branch where she could hide among the books. No family, no friends to speak of. What do you do for joy? Nathan asked during one visit. Sarah looked puzzled, as if the question were in a foreign language. Joy? Things that make you happy? Hobbies? Interests? She considered this seriously, I read. I have a small garden on my fire escape. Sometimes I watch people from my window and imagine their stories. Nathan smiled. That sounds lonely. It's safe, she replied simply. But as the weeks passed, Nathan noticed small changes. Sarah began making eye contact. She smiled once when he made a gentle joke about his terrible coffee. She even laughed at a sound so rare and unexpected it made Nathan's chest tighten with something he couldn't name. Then came the appointment that changed everything. Your test results are perfect, Nathan said, closing Sarah's file. Your heart is completely healthy. Sarah's face fell. So I have to stop coming. The question hung between them, loaded with meaning. Neither was ready to acknowledge. Dane had been asking himself the same thing for days. Professionally, she no longer needed his care. Personally, he couldn't imagine not seeing her again. Sarah, he said carefully, I need to tell you something. What you're experiencing, heart, the anxiety aches. Not physical. It's emotional. She nodded slowly. I know. And I think you know something else, too. Nathan stood and walked to his window, looking out at the city below. This isn't really about cardiology anymore. When he turned back, Sarah was watching him with those large, careful eyes. For once she didn't look away. I've never felt this way before, she whispered. About anyone. I didn't think I was capable of it. Nathan's professional composure cracked. Sarah, I've spent my entire career maintaining boundaries. I've never even thought about crossing them. But, she asked, softly. But you've changed something in me I didn't know existed. He moved closer, stopping just within arm's reach. I think about you when you're not here. I worry about you being alone. I want to show you that the world can be gentle. Sarah stood, on trembling legs. I'm scared. Of me? Of feeling this much? Of wanting something I've never had? She took a shaky breath. Of not being enough for someone like you. Nathan's heart broke a little. Sarah, you're not the one who might not be enough. I'm a man who's lived in a bubble of privilege and control. I don't know how to be gentle with something as precious as this. They stood facing each other, the space between them charged with possibility and fear. Maybe we could learn together. Sarah suggested, her voice barely audible. Nathan reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he gently took her hand. Her fingers were cold and shaking, but she didn't withdraw. "I'd like that," he said. "No, but we have to go slowly. We have to be honest about everything. Can you do that?" Sarah squeezed his hand first time she'd initiated any physical contact. "I can try." "Then let's start with something simple," Nathan said, smiling. "Would you like to have dinner with me? Somewhere quiet? Somewhere safe?" For the first time since he'd known her, Sarah's smile was radiant and unafraid. Yes. 6 months later, Nathan found himself in Sarah's tiny apartment, helping her water the plants on her fire escape garden. The space was nothing like his penthouse, but it felt more like home than anywhere he'd ever lived. Sarah moved with quiet confidence now, no longer hiding in oversized cardigans. She still jumped sometimes when touched unexpectedly, but she no longer apologized for existing. More importantly, she had learned to ask for what she needed. "I want to tell you something," she said, settling beside him on her small couch. "About why I was so afraid before?" Nathan took her hand naturally now, a gesture that had taken months to feel comfortable for both of them. "You don't have to. I want to." The toy looked at their intertwined fingers. "I grew up in foster care. Different homes, but they all had one thing in common: adults who were too tired, too overwhelmed, or too broken themselves to show love. I learned that wanting affection meant disappointment, that being invisible was safer than being seen."
Nathan
squeezed her hand gently. "But you saw me anyway," Sarah continued, "even when I was trying to disappear. And you waited for me to be ready to be seen." "You taught me something too," Nathan said. "I thought success meant having control over everything. But the best things in life require letting go, trusting, being vulnerable." Sarah smiled and leaned against his shoulder, another small miracle of trust. "Your board of directors would be scandalized to know their golden boy cardiologist is dating a small-town librarian." "Let them be scandalized," Nathan laughed. "Besides, you're not just any librarian. You're the woman who taught a millionaire doctor that the most powerful touch isn't physical, it's emotional." Sarah tilted her face up to look at him. "What kind of touch is this?" she asked, reaching up to gently trace the line of his jaw. "This," Nathan said, leaning down to kiss her forehead softly, "is the touch that heals everything." As the sun set over the city, casting golden light through Sarah's small windows, they sat together in comfortable silence. Nathan had given up his sterile penthouse and moved closer to Sarah's neighborhood. Sarah had started seeing patients at a community center, helping other women who struggled with trust and touch. They had both learned that sometimes the most profound healing happens not in sterile medical offices, but in quiet moments where two damaged souls choose to be brave enough to love and be loved in return. The shy patient who once couldn't bear to be touched now helped others find their own courage. And the millionaire doctor who once lived behind walls of professional distance had discovered that the greatest wealth was found in the simple act of holding hands with someone who truly knew his heart. Asterisk. It's the end. Asterisk. Asterisk, like this video if the story touched your heart, subscribe for more emotional tales, and share with someone who believes in the power of true love. And let us know in the comments. We love connecting with our global community of romance lovers.